Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. In the last video, what we did was we started going over Chapter 1, and we really concluded Chapter 1 of the Murach ASP.NET Core MVC text. Now we're going to go into Chapter 2, which is the last free chapter that we're given here. Now, before I do, and I'm going to go into it right now, how to develop a one-page MVC app. This is what they're developing, something that looks similar to what you see right here. Now, what it says is it's a future value calculator. It can be used to calculate the future value, also known as an FV, of an investment with given inputs, the number of compounding periods, the interest rate, the starting amount, and any periodic deposits you're going to make. Now, this says that if I had 10 periods, I started with $1,000, had an interest rate of 6%, and for each one of those periods added $100, by the end I'd have this amount. Now let's make this a little more realistic. First, let's make this 12 periods, per year. All right, because there's 12 months in a year. We'll start out with $1,000, and an interest rate, well, it's not going to be 6% all the time. It's really going to be 0.5, 0.5%, because 0.5% times 12, all right, is going to be 6%. And if we calculate now, notice the difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to copy it here, and I'm going to stick it into Paint. Put it right here, get rid of that, and I'm going to grab, I don't really need this right up anymore, so I'm going to move this down a little bit, and I'm going to grab this right here. We really don't need this because we're not going to make any kind of graphical thing in here, but we'll leave it in there anyway. So let's copy that. This will be my measuring stick. So in other words, when we get done and we're going to put in something that looks like this, I hope we get that amount. All right, let's hope that works. All right, so starting with Chapter 2 then, how to develop a one-page MVC app. It says in the last chapter, we learned the basic concepts of web programming in ASP.NET Core MVC. Now we'll develop what's considered to be at least a simple one-page ASP.NET Core MVC app to calculate the future value. We're going to use Visual Studio as they do in here. So here's what the chapter's about. We'll talk about how to start a new web app, how to configure it, how to set up the folders, how to add a controller, how to add a Razor view. So see, we will talk Razor, how to configure the middleware. Then, because I'm human, there'll probably be errors. So we'll run it, and if there are any errors, we'll find and fix them. Then we'll talk about a model. All right, finally we'll talk about how to organize our files for a view and how to do user input validation. Okay, it looks like this might be a little bit too big. I don't know if I can get rid of this thing or not. No, I don't want that. All right, let's move this down just a little bit there. All right, so as it says, the chapter starts by showing how to create a new ASP.NET Core MVC web app. All right, including the folder structure, etc. So I'm not going to read this to you, but I'm going to do it. All right, and if you have this PDF available to you, all right, then you can follow along with that if you care to. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it ASP.NET MVC. Could call it Core MVC. It doesn't matter what the heck I call it, but I'm going to leave it like that. So that's going to be my folder where I'm going to create things. Next, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start something completely new. So I'm going to create a new project. All right. Now, when we do this, what we want is not what you see here. So let's come in here and let's type in ASP.NET and we'll say Core Web. Okay, and notice what we get here. All right. So this is Razor Pages, a web API, but we want to use a model view controller. So I think this is the one that we're going to want to use. So let's look at the difference between these two. Okay, it's the same thing, but we want the one for C#. So we're coming in here and we're going to create a new project, but it's going to be ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller right there. Now I can double click on this or I can click it and click Next. All right. Now, the project name for this one is going to be Future Value. I don't know what they call it in the book, but that's what I'm calling it. All right, the location, we don't want it under payroll. We want it under the new folder we just created. So on the desktop, we just created a new folder called ASP.NET MVC. So that'll be the folder that we'll put it in. The solution name, all right, we're just going to call this again. How about ASP MVC, something like that. All right, and I'm going to click Next. So that's not really going to end up looking all that different when we go on here. We're going to keep it at 8.0. We will configure it for HTTPS. Here is if we wanted to, if we were doing something with Linux and we're not. And I'm just going to leave everything the way it is and click Create. And for lack of better words, some kind of magical stuff is going to happen in here. What do I mean? All right. Well, I'm going to click Get rid of this. And you'll notice it already created for me a www root, controllers, a models, and a views. Also, you may or may not have noticed, okay, there is no longer in here an app.config. It's been replaced with an app settings.json file. We'll talk about all this stuff as we go on. All right, so going back and making sure that you have this, we did a file, we did a new project from the menu. All right, we went to the ASP.NET Core Web App Model View Controller template. All right, if we wanted to do it from scratch, there is an ASP.NET Core empty template as well, but I didn't want to do that. All right, to configure it, all right, we set up the name of the project as Future Value. I guess it looks like that's what they did in the book on page 41. We gave it our own location for it. So we configured by entering a project name, we specified a location, and we changed the solution name. Okay, so we've got all that done. So, whoops, we can look at that one later, but I didn't mean to hit that. So, all right. So we've set up with what we've done by using the template. Okay, it says if you started with a web app MVC template, you can delete all the files from the folders named models, views, and controllers. So, it says we can get rid of this. We can get rid of this. And we can get rid of anything that's in here. I'm going to leave the index one in here. I'm going to get rid of that. All right, I'll just leave all that stuff in there. The weird thing, so to speak, about this is I believe, and I could be wrong here, it's been a while, I think we can actually run this now. It's not going to do much, it's not going to look very grand or glorious, but I think it will run. Now, if there's a private, whoops, okie dokie. Oh, it's looking for this error view model. So I shouldn't have removed that. So let's try to put that back in. I just want to see if we can get this to run. I'm going to add, I think it'll be a view. And we're going to add in here error.cshtml. Don't worry about all this stuff. We're going to go over all of it as we go on. So I don't know if that fixed everything we had wrong or not. It did not. Son of a gun. I shouldn't have removed any of this. This is what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to remove the folder and recreate it. So I'm going to delete the folder. And I'm going to add it again. Let's just call this one ASP-MVC. Okay, now I'm going to go back and pretty much do what I did before, but I'm going to leave it so I can run the program so you can kind of see what we're doing. I'm going to create a new project here. Now the template, we're going to use this one. So since we've got it, we'll just double click. We're going to name this future value. And the solution, this isn't going to go here. It's just going to go into ASP-MVC. Let's just let the system find it for us. All right, and we will call this ASP.NET-MVC. So that'll be the name of our solution. Next, leave all that, click create. Now there's a reason and I went back and did this because I shouldn't have removed that stuff to begin with, because I just want to show you that we can actually run this now. Should be able to. Not going to do much, not going to look very grand or glorious. There's no formatting that's really been done. Install a certificate, yes. Okay, now let's see if it runs. Okay, that's it. Future value, there's a home page, there's a privacy page. Like I said, not much to it. Okay, but the point is, it does run right now with what we have in here. All right. Now, I'm going to do what it said in here. It says expand the controllers folder and delete all files that are in there. Expand the models folder and delete all files that are in there. Expand the views folder and its subfolders and delete all files in these folders, but don't delete the folders. Okay. If we had an empty template, we would add a controllers folder now, a models folder now, and a views folder now. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to want to come in and add a controller. So let's go back to this, take a quick look at it. We've done all this, configured it. I'm trying to show you, I think it would make more sense to do it the way I'm doing it. Hopefully you don't disagree. If you do, there's not much I guess you can do about it. All right. So it says the procedure on the next page shows how to add a controller file to a web app. In addition, it shows the code for the controller after it's been edited, so it's a good starting point. A controller is a C# class that inherits from that namespace. It's common to place controller classes in a namespace that have the project name, a dot, and the name of the folder that stores it. So the home controller class is in future value dot controller's namespace. Should make sense. If a method or controller runs in response to an HTTP action verb, such as get or post, meaning you're doing something. Getting is you're retrieving. Posting means you're showing a response. The method is known as an action method or an action. It says we'll learn more about how all this works later. So let's put it in and take a look and see what it looks like. So I'm going into controllers. I'm going to add, and I want to tell it to add a controller. Now we're going to select MVC controller empty, and we're going to click add, and it's going to ask us, what do you want to call this controller? Well, by default, it's called home controller.cs. Notice it is a C# file. Okay, so we're just going to click add, and you'll see there it is, and this is what we have in it. It's got the using statement that we already mentioned. It's got our namespace. All right. It says that it's inheriting from this controller. All right. And in this action index right now, we're going to add two things. We're going to say here, view bag dot name equals Mary. I'm using exactly what they have in the book. And view bag dot fv, v for future value, equals 99999.99. Okay. All right. So what have we done in here? Okay. We set two properties of what's called the viewBag property. ViewBag is a property that's automatically available to your controllers and to your views. The first one is a string that is equal to a name of Mary. The second one is a decimal, which has got a value of $99,999.99. The ViewBag property uses dynamic properties for getters and setters. All right. Next, we return the result of the view. All right. It says for the index action of the home controller, this returns a view result object for the view in the views.home.index.cs HTML file that we're going to work on in just a minute. By specifying here, as you see up on line 7, an iAction result interface, it allows you to return any type of value. It's a flexible way, as it says, to be working with this. All right, so a method of a controller that runs in response to an HTTP action verb like get or post is called an action method or an action. The ViewBag property automatically is available to controllers and views. It uses dynamic properties like the ones on lines 9 and 10 to get and set values. The view method returns a view result object for the view associated with an action method. All right. That's what we've got so far. Now, if we ran it, it wouldn't work. It's not going to do much. We'd probably get some kind of an error. I'm not even going to try, but I'm going to leave that file there. And I'm going to go into the Views folder, and I'm going to right mouse click under Home, and I'm going to click Add and add a view. We're going to select Razor View Empty and click Add. And again, it's going to ask us for a name here. And notice by default, it's called index.cshtml, which again means it is a combination of C# and HTML. All right, so I'm going to click Add, and we'll see what we get by default. Not much. All right, anything that you see in here that's green, those are comments. You do your comments a little bit differently in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove everything that's in here, and I'm going to replace it with what's shown in the book on page 47. Now you notice it's automatically thrown some stuff in here for me, even though I didn't ask for it, but that's okay. All right. I'm going to pretty this up just a little bit here. So you can see what's going where. Okay. All right. We're going to put a thing in here before we set up the title, and it's going to say meta name equal viewport content equals width equals device dash width, like that. Then under the title, we're just going to put homepage. All right. Then in the body, we're going to add a couple things in here. An H1 tag that says future value. And let's just pretty it up a little. So we'll say here future value calculator. So that's going to be our title. And then we'll, oops, don't want that. I don't need that. All right, under that, we're going to put a couple paragraph tags. So we'll say customer name, and we're going to put it here at viewbag dot name, and that's going to grab that Mary for us. And then we're going to put in another paragraph, and we're going to have in here future value at viewbag.fv.toString, and we want it for currency with 2 decimal places. So right now, basically what we've done is we've set this up so that if we were to run it, I don't know if it would run or not right now. It's going to say in there, future value calculator, customer name Mary, future value 99999. Okay? So this is the view that we want to create. This is a Razor view that we've added. All right, our Razor view contains, it's a .cshtml file, so it contains both C# code and HTML code. That's why it's got that extension. All right, if we want to do a bunch of stuff, we can create what's called a block of code that we put in between curly braces. All right, right now we're not doing any of that. So this is a simple HTML. So a Razor view again contains both C# code and HTML code, and that's why its extension is HTML. The Razor View engine uses server-side code to embed C# code within HTML elements. All right, so believe it or not, it's pretty quickly. All right, a little bit more, and then we're going to be able to go in here and actually run this. It's not going to look like much, but it's going to be a start. All right, so what we need in here is we need a program, whoopsie, get that back up here. We need a program.cs file. Okay, and there it is. So what's in here? Well, it's got a lot of stuff in here already for us. The program.cs file has the code that configures the middleware that we talked about earlier for the HTTP request pipeline, and it starts the program. All right. It begins by checking whether or not this is a development environment. If it isn't, it configures the middleware for a production environment. That's that if statement that you see on lines 9 through 14. This map controller route that you see in starting in line 23, it sets the default controller. It says that we want to run this from home. All right, so what are we doing here? Okay. We can edit the program.cs file so it configures the middleware for the pipeline correctly. It says if you're starting from the MVC template, you can usually accept the default. The code for program.cs that's generated by the template starts by creating a web action object named builder. Then it calls add controllers with views, which enables the services required by the controller in Razor Views, as you'll see as we move through the book. Once the services have been added, the code calls the build method and assigns the web application object. To start, it checks whether or not the web hosting environment is development. If it's not a development, it handles exceptions by displaying a page for end users. Otherwise, it handles exceptions by displaying a web page that's designed for developers, not for end users. All right, now hopefully at least, let's see. We should be able to save this and run it. Hopefully we're not going to get errors. If we do, we'll have to debug them. Of course, we got errors. It says models does not exist in the namespace. Are you missing a reference? Well, there's models. It is there. But in this view imports, well, let's try doing this. Let's see if we can comment this out. All right. So again, what was that? That was add sign. Yep. Okay. I don't know if that'll fix it or not, but let's see. And we still could get errors. We're not doing anything with models, so I think that's okay. There it is. All right, there's the name of our page. There's the H1 header that we put in. We added these two paragraph tags. This grabbed that view bag name. This grabbed that view bag future value amount. Now, this isn't doing much, and every time we run this, it's going to look just like this, which is kind of silly. But it's a start. All right. So they explain how to run this basically on page 50 and 51. And then they talk about if you've got errors, okay, on 51 and 52. All right. It says if any errors are detected, Visual Studio opens an error list that shows them. The errors might not be accurate, and its link might not jump you to exactly where the code is. After you fix the errors, You may encounter an exception where you have to stop. But these are all things we discussed earlier. There's three basic types of errors. There's a syntax error, which is an error in the rules of the language, not putting in a semicolon, etc., spelling something incorrectly. There is a runtime error, where you run the program and you get some kind of an error, so it's not known until you run it. And there's a logic error, which are the hardest for you to find. All right. Why? Because we're human and we don't like to admit we make errors on our own. So let's see where we are here. Oh, we're already over 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop right here. And we're going to pick it up on page 54 on how to work with a model. So we're going to add that when we come back. And I'll see you then.